Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, December 20th Jupyter online team meeting. And we realize that a lot of people will be leaving for holidays soon. And we'll probably talk about the holiday schedule for team meetings at some point here. But let's go ahead and get started. And Jamie, do you want to go first with project management related stuff?
Sure. It looks like Brian has submitted materials to a trademark lawyer, so we're continuing to pursue the trademark in the U.S. First off, and then we'll look at exploring trademark stuff internationally. And it looks like, Brian, you're working with Fernando to create a process for writing the JAWS paper for your different repos. I've been working on still trying to catch up from that tough meeting and being out of the office for 4 days. But that's happening slowly but surely. So we probably will see something from me after the new year, based on vacation schedules, etc. The talk at Bloomberg went really well last week. I did a talk, and then we did an open demo and a hands-on portion, and Carol was there, and Fernando was there, and Jess Hamrick and Mike Pacer were there as well, and we got some good feedback from the attendees, and it was a really fun night. And Paul Ivanoff was there as well. So that's about all I have off the top of my head. Let's go ahead and move down to the notebook.
If I can make just one comment on the JOS articles, where this came from is I recently participated with the SymPy project in authoring a PeerJ article that we submitted for SymPy, and the process they used for that paper was just spectacular. They were able to get really high participation across different people in terms of all aspects of the paper, including the actual writing of the article. The whole thing went really fast. And so I'd been talking to Fernando about that, and we feel like sort of testing out some of those process ideas on something simple like the JOS articles, where the writing is pretty trivial, would be a good idea. And then we would like to take the ideas or the process ideas we learned from that and start to apply them to the other papers, including the one that Thomas has been working on that he has some notes on further down. And so we're just trying to get figure out a way for us to write papers sort of more efficiently and more often. So. And next is notebook stuff. Is Grant here?
Grant's usually not in the Tuesday Deb meeting. He tends to have class at this time, so he's usually not here. He catches up later. But I think Matthias and Thomas, you guys are notebook contacts. You got nothing?
We can try.
Okay.
So for notebook 4.3, we added auto-generated token if you don't have a password for security reason, to avoid cross-site requests and any website on the internet to take over your computer. It's not as bad, but just to be safe. So when you, with 4.3 and above, when you type Jupyter Notebook on your terminal, it should auto-open the browser and pass the authentication token to the URL, which should automatically log you in, so you shouldn't get stuck to the password, enter password screen. Though we probably underestimated the number of users that have a different workflows than this one. Like, for example, whether they have bookmarks or whether they use Anaconda, which does not auto-open in the same way for some reason, or even use both localhost and 127.0.0.1 as the IP for their server. which led to a number of users to just upgrade, start their notebook as usual, and just be prompted with a password and no clue about what this password was. The other problem is that you can see the password in the terminal if you think to look at the terminal, but if a lot of activity has gone by, then your password is password token is way up in the terminal, and you might not even be able to access it. So Min made a PR, if I remember correctly, that tried to make it clearer on the password page if you're not automatically logged in what the steps are to actually get this token and log in to the server. It's still not perfect, especially if you have a remote notebook server which is listening on a public IP, because you might not have access to the terminal and you might have to find a way to log in remotely. But for now, we believe that the 4.31 we will release soon should be better from a user experience to log in. Still not perfect, but it's a good compromise if we want to have still tight security. We discussed with Fernando. I won't develop there. They are just in person. I can do a write-up. There are a few other possibilities that are slightly friendlier for users, but that might expose some slight window of vulnerability for the server. We decided not to go through with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks, Matthias. And I think we can, with what we have, with the kind of better information and clearer stuff, I think we can put out 4.3. We can put out 4.31 with kind of the better information, making it clearer what's going on, and then we can figure out if we want to do something else in the future. But we should definitely get it released in the next day or two.
Hey, Damian, we're getting a lot of background noise. Welcome to the call.
So sorry about that. It would be nice if after the point releases, we can have additionally a blog post about this, because I know there was some documentation updates on that matter, but I think that if we have a good exposition about the issue and how we solve it, people will be in a better space. So maybe a blog post is something reasonable to do about that after the point release.
Yeah, I agree, and also I've drafted one on just today before the meeting. Drafted one that we can put out with the 4.31 release that covers all the token stuff and also some other things for 4.31.
Nice, thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. It looks like the next two things on the list are Jupyter Lab and IPy widgets, and those are within Darian and Jason's realm, but they're out this week. So we'll move on to Jupyter Hub. Min, take it away. We can't hear you. We lost you.
Wrong thing was in the front. My only thing on Jupyter Hub has been just ironing out a couple of issues that have come up now that we've rolled out 0.7. There's a particular configuration of Jupyter Hub and Docker Spawner that needs a little help, but Carol's been helping me on those PRs, and we should be able to get a bug fix release to those two packages shortly. And then Carol's been doing a lot of work on some of the deployments and documentation of the making the teaching deployment easier to understand and follow what's going on. And then I don't know if Carol wants to talk about what she's been doing. And she's done a bit more of that this week than I have.
Yeah, it's been just a lot of just responding to people, and we're going to start updating some things for Python 3.6, just primarily Travis with the tests. And for some reason, Jupyter Hub docs are now failing, probably for the similar reason that NB-convert was. So we'll take care of those as well.
Does it also have a cyclic dependency sort of thing, where Jupyter Hub is depending on that, or depends on it?
It might. I just got the email like right before I jumped on the call, so I haven't actually gotten a chance to look at it, but it looked like one of the sub-process calls was failing.
Got it. Oh, but it might just be any arbitrary subprocess, not the install subprocess that then says that nothing exists.
Maybe, I don't know. I haven't looked at it close enough. But I'll ping you if I need you.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks, guys. I think NB-DIME was next on the list.
So the main reason I didn't do too much on Jupyter Hub was because I was helping out here getting NB-DIME out the door. So we have our first. Well, I've been doing a lot of different things. So I haven't made a lot of progress on any individual one over the last week or two. But this will, yeah, I guess I'll go straight. So NB-DIME has a release. So if you want to see how diffing and merging notebooks can work and get feedback on that stuff, it's in. I think it's fairly usable. The diffing especially is in pretty good shape. There's a lot of room on the merging, but it works. Next is also me.
Yep.
NB Viewer. So we've been having some issues with NB Viewer that seem related to the fact that it was running on the Carina stuff at Rackspace, and I moved it. So we have our NB Viewer deployment scripts on GitHub, and I just ran them on a Jupyter Hub instance and pointed the domains to that, and or pointed Fastly at that, and the error rates have gone from relatively high to effectively 0 and stayed there for a week. So that seems to have been the issue.
Great, thank you. Yeah, those issues came up during our demo and hands-on thing, so that'll be great to know that it'll be more reliable going forward.
Yeah, and
cool.
I started work on some better instrumentation for kind of notifications and status monitoring, so people can see how healthy NB Viewer is. But I haven't finished that. And I don't know when I will. Yeah.
We got time. Thanks, Ben. All right, NB-convert. Mike, you're up.
All right. So last week we actually released NB-convert twice. So the first one was actually because Sylvain had asked specifically for NB Viewer to be able to have live widgets. So I just wanted to push something out and backported it and then sent it out. So that's what 4.3 does. And then 5.0 is the one that we've been working on for most of the year. And yeah, and then we already broke something and then Thomas fixed it. So, and now that's just waiting on a merge, and then I'll send out a patch release.
So fantastic. Congrats on the dual release. A question about that. On what release schedule are we updating the CSS and NB-convert to match that of the classic notebook?
I thought that we were dynamically pulling it in at this point. So I could be wrong.
We may be. Yeah, because the reason I ask is
a version. We're pulling it in, but we're not pulling it in from master.
Okay.
So have we pulled? And the reason I'm asking is in Notebook 4.3 we updated the styling of HTML tables to match what we're doing in Jupyter Lab, and it's a significant improvement, and I'm wondering if that's going to end up in one of those versions of NB-convert and subsequently NB Viewer.
Sure. I may need someone to point me in all the right places because I haven't looked into that part of the code too in depth, and I can figure it out, but just 2 pointers and I can change a link is a lot faster.
Awesome.
It's just a variable in setup.py.
Oh, perfect.
Just like notebook fantastic. CSS version or something.
Okay.
Change that.
yeah, if someone wants to check out the, I put a link to the PR and we can merge that, and then I'll make a change today to this, and then I can send out another release just with the improved CSS and that. So yeah, 3 releases, 2 weeks.
Cool.
Oh, and there were a bunch of stuff about docs that's been temporarily taken care of by the release process. But we still don't have a good way of handling the thing where if you are dependent upon a project that is dependent upon you and not building on master or a dev version, but rather whatever the most stable release is, and you change the API, it overwrites the editable like dev install. And so you run into errors on read the docs sort of inevitably. And the solution that we thought we had for that didn't seem to continue working. So still trying to figure that out. And if anyone has figured out how to get read the docs locally working on OS 10, I'd love any pointers, because that has turned out to that 8 days of life. So
Crickets. Maybe somebody will see the video and reach out to you.
hopefully.
I haven't done a full thing of read the docs locally. I've just hoped that my manual typing of their build commands has been close enough, but it's not always the case.
Okay, I can.
I think I got it working. It's a Django instance, so we can take a look at it later.
Sounds good. Since it's working now, it's not as urgent as it was before. So it's only going to become really urgent if we change the API again. But it's also something that any other project that has that sort of cyclic, like package dependency, you should keep an eye out for that, because it will cause you problems. Or if it doesn't, tell me how it doesn't cause you problems, because I want to know.
All right. So it looks like we had the GitHub automation that Matthias is working on. He shared some good information with the Berkeley team yesterday, but he's not feeling well, so he's not going to share today. Maybe when he comes back from his break. Next in line, we have a design, and that's Brian.
Yeah, so the students at Cal Poly are making another pass on the brand guidelines to address the feedback from the team meeting. We do have the current version of the brand guidelines up on the main README of the design repo. So feel free to use that, pass that around. And then Cameron, Farika, and Charnpreet are working on a Jupyter Sphinx theme that's based on the Alabaster theme. And I wanted to mention, we did look at the Read the Docs theme, and it turned out to be sort of a nightmare to customize in the way that we were wanting. And the big thing is we're trying to create a Sphinx theme that shares the same site nav at the top of the page as the main Jupyter website. So it would allow us to have the documentation on a separate, to continue to host it on Read the Docs, but from a user's perspective, have a uniform navigation between the documentation and the main website. Eventually, we'd like to also add that same site nav to NB Viewer. So basically, people can sort of navigate between these different sites in a very consistent, uniform way. And so they're working on that. And then another thing that's sort of design and Jupyter Lab related is that we've recently moved from using icon fonts, and in particular Font Awesome, to using SVG for icons in Jupyter Lab. And our transition to that was really to address the fact that icon fonts are typically designed to be displayed only at certain specific pixel sizes, and outside of that range you get rendering artifacts, and it was make it really difficult for us to move forward with any design changes to the icon set, including just changing their font size, which is really constraining. And GitHub has moved to using SVG-based icons recently and has a nice article that I've linked to in the notes there. And so Cameron put together a PR, and that PR has been accepted. We are starting to use material design icons, but it's also quite simple to create new icons as well. Basically, you can just drop an SVG file in and create a CSS class for that, rather than having to go through the whole difficult process of creating an icon font, which is a lot more difficult to do. So I at least wanted to mention that, and we'll let people know how that goes as people try it out. The only possible disadvantage is for if you had a web page with many, many, many icons that are SVG based, you could run into performance problems. But I think our feeling right now is that in general, we're probably going to end up with fewer icons on the page than GitHub has. They have quite a few SVG-based icons on their page, and I don't think anyone has been having performance problems with GitHub. So we'll keep everyone posted on that.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Let's see. Thomas, how's that paper going?
Yes, so the Jupyter overview paper that various of you have been involved in is back in play yet again. I think we have a draft more or less together, and I'm kind of looking at the requirements for JAWS, the General Open Research Software, which is where we said we were going to submit this.
Yeah. So Thomas, at some point, I think minimally you, and Fernando should talk about the paper process. I think I learned a lot, and I think we can sort of make some small adjustments to the process, and I think it'll really help us to get this paper and other papers out. So we should probably schedule a phone call or a chat at some point.
Super. Way to go. Let's see. I have a blog on here. There's no name next to it. Matthias, it looks like you may have added it. It says how to update Ghost. Our version is almost 2 years old. If anybody has comments, please add them to the hackpad, since it sounds like Matthias won't be able to have a dialogue here today. So you guys can follow up on that. I added some project management activities at the top, quite a few actually. So I did want to report that I went through a demo provided by AHA, which is AHA is a product management piece of software that's actually was created by a person who graduated from Berkeley. So he's really excited to work with us, work with Berkeley in general to deploy AHA across the different projects that are going on. So this was set up by our research IT group and data carpentry. So we had I think it was about a 30 to 45 minute demo from them. And it's a beautiful piece of software. It has really great project visualization tools, so Gantt charts and schedules and task lists. But the Achilles heel here is in order for it to work, AHA needs to serve as a system of record for your project, which means that all issues and ideas need to be submitted to AHA. It has a GitHub integration, but everything needs to go through AHA first to create GitHub records. So I thought that was pretty much a deal breaker. And so we're going to continue to look at tools on our end. I know different folks have been creating useful tools in GitHub, and I'm working on scheduling that tutorial so people can share what they've been working on separately. Brian and Jason and Matthias, me, and I think some other folks. Sorry if I left off your name. So that's the status on that. Today's the last day to submit any names for our tech writer. candidate, we need to get the names into our business office so they can send the candidates a request for proposal for the contract. Currently, we have 3 names, and it sounds like Fernando didn't receive any via email. So if anybody knows of anyone who's looking for a tech writer position or job, send them our way before the end of today. Okay, and I'll be working in GitHub over the next couple of weeks, creating some schedules that are easily accessible in GitHub. So I'll be using the GitHub Projects tool to create a basic roadmap, like a calendar style roadmap, and start slotting our different initiatives over the next year. And that's about it. I think that's all I'll share over the video. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. All right, just checking the chat. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to add before we end for the year? Shall we say no dev meeting next week?
Happy holidays.
Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Kyle.
Hello.
Yeah, I think saying no, not having a meeting next Tuesday probably does make sense.
All right, great. Okay, we'll say goodbye to the internet. Bye, internet. See you next year.
Bye.